Welcome to the United States Space Camp in Huntsville, Alabama. More than 200 young people from many states are attending Space Camp this week.
David, you're on the team of Columbia. You'll be staying upstairs in Sleep Station 7. Go down here, down the hall, it's your last door on the left. You need to wear that name tag at all times.
They will learn what it is like to train to become an astronaut, the importance of teamwork and leadership skills, as well as learning how rockets and the space shuttle operate. They'll meet new friends, learn a little bit about being self-sufficient, and be a part of an experience they will remember for the rest of their lives.
Okay, everybody. Looking this way. Nice big smiles. Eyes open. On 2. 1, 2.
After man had landed on the moon, von Braun had the idea that our young people, our youngsters in school, grammar school, high school, should somehow learn and hear more about this very ambitious program of moving into space. And he figured since we have camps, summer camps of all types, baseball camps, football camps, and all other kind of things, we should also have one that is dedicated strictly to space. So he really had initially the idea to have a space camp. And I even think he came up with this idea. And he mentioned it to Ed Buckby, the director of the Alabama Space and Rocket Center here, who was building up already the Space Center. And of course he was not immediately ready when von Braun said it, but after the Space Center had been established and many fine displays were available here, he finally picked up the idea again and he established an early space camp. So space camp, the idea of space camp started in the early 70s, just after the lunar landing, but the implementation of course had to wait a few more years before the facilities were available. And that, of course, led finally to the establishment of Space Camp.
Rise and shine.
An important part of astronaut training programs is physical conditioning. Campers have an evening curfew and rise early in the morning for a hearty, nutritious breakfast and a period of brisk astronaut conditioning activities.
The chair that you see Chris riding in is called the multi-axis training chair. This is the chair they developed to train the astronauts for the disorientation of space. If you'll notice, there are 3 rings around the chair. This outer ring is bolted to the floor and it doesn't move. The middle ring rotates from head to toe on the x-axis, and the inner ring rotates from left to right on the y-axis. The chair goes up to a speed of 9, but our chair is locked on a speed of 3. This is about 2 revolutions per second. The astronauts actually went up to 35 miles per hour at some times. Okay, now I want you to notice as Chris starts to spin in the chair that his stomach will stay in the center of the rings and it won't move. He also won't spin in the same direction more than twice. This will prevent his inner ear fluid from becoming disturbed and he won't get dizzy or sick. The astronauts train in this chair up to 8 hours on some days. They would be in total darkness except for the lights on their instrument panel, and they were enclosed in a plastic bubble so that no wind could reach them to cause disorientation. Okay.
In today's session, we'll discuss a little bit the orbits, and mainly I will concentrate on the subject how to maneuver the orbiter in space. That works a little bit different than here in the atmosphere, and you will have to need to understand some basics about physics. But when I talk about an equatorial orbit, where you're orbiting across the equator, I refer to that as zero angle of inclination.
facility we're in right now is known as the Neutral Buoyancy Simulator, otherwise known as the NBS. This model right here shows the tank. It's 40 feet in diameter and 75 feet deep. There's approximately 1.4 million gallons of water inside the tank. Now they use the tank to simulate working in zero gravity. Now what they do is they either weight down an object or they put flotation devices on it. Now, would they want to weight an astronaut or put flotation on him in a spacesuit? Weight. Why would they want to weight him down? Right, you got pressure in the spacesuit, so it's basically a balloon. So they have to put weights on his arms, his thighs, around by his ankles, and a belt around his midsection. Now the subjects will enter the tank up here, and then they'll be made sure everything's weighted properly, and then they'll go down and work. Now, neutral buoyancy. As we all know, water has buoyancy. Well, what do I mean by that? Things float in it. Now, that's pretty obvious. Now, if you weight them out perfect, or you float them out perfect, let's say you have a wrench, you put flotation devices on it, you let go of it, it'll stay right where it is. That's how this thing simulates zero gravity. Now, an astronaut can turn upside down, work in any way that he wants to, just like he would in space.
This is the free axis simulator. It was developed by NASA during the 1960s in order to give the early astronauts a feeling for what it's like to maneuver your whole body around in space without being confined to gravity. You can maneuver your body in all three different axes, rotate it in any direction you wish, position your body so that you can work on whatever it is you want to work on. That's where the name free axis comes from.
This is the MMU simulator. This simulates the manned maneuvering unit that is very similar to the one on the shuttle. There are three different controls. We have the inner boom and the outer boom. The inner boom is like the forearm of the arm, and it's the one closest to you. The outer boom is the one like your upper arm, and therefore you need to move the arm. What we're going to do is we're going to put this flag up in this position up there. And you do so by maneuvering the inner boom up first, and then we'll use the outer boom to go up, and then we have a right and left switch.
Okay, what you're about to ride is a 5DF, okay? 5 degrees of freedom. Degrees of freedom refers to the many directions in which you can move, okay? You have limited forward and backwards here, right? You have full freedom side to side. In fact, you can flip all the way over either direction. You have forward and backwards side to side here. You also have a 50 degree by being suspended off the floor. This was used to train the astronauts during the early space program. It works on air bearings, okay? Cushions of compressed air that rise a fraction of an inch off the floor. This allows for virtually frictionless movement horizontally across the floor.
All right, what we're in right now is the cockpit simulator for the space shuttle, okay? It's called a motion-based simulator. It's mounted on hydraulics, so when we turn it on, the two joysticks on the commander and pilot's seats, you'll be free to move in either direction. You can roll it, you can pitch it, you can bank it left and right, up or down, okay? And what we're going to do is during the missions, you'll have control of it. You'll be able to fly the shuttle from this cockpit. And while you're doing the flying, other people like payload specialists, mission specialists, will go out through the airlock and perform EVAs. They'll go into Space Lab and do experiments.
One of the more important parts of the Level 2 program is something that we call space station involvement. All of the kids that you see sitting behind me are working in a space station project where they sit down as a team with their manuals and design a space station. Now what's going to be involved is they have to work together as a team, come up with a lot of ideas, think it through, work out the problems, work together as a team. That is one of the major parts of this kind of activity. Now, although it isn't very exciting to look at, it does promote this teamwork and this thought process that we're trying to get across. They're responsible for designing a space station that will involve 6 shuttle flights and will solve one of the problems that they think the future of the world will see. And they're responsible for designing it and working it out to solve that problem so that any other people in the in the Level 2 program can ask questions and receive an answer about how this would solve that particular problem.
Okay, what you're going to be doing down here is building a large tetrahedron. Tetrahedron's a three-dimensional pyramid consisting of 4 connectors and 6 poles down here. Connectors looks like this. This on top. In between you will have poles in between these connectors. Okay, to connect the poles, simply take the connector here. You notice the notches in the end of the connector. Slip them down inside the groove. Slide the sleeve forward until it locks. Connector is now locked in place. Disconnect. Push the button down, slide the sleeve back. The poles here are neutrally buoyant. That means that they will stay wherever you put them. The connectors here, on the other hand, are negatively buoyant. That means they'll go straight to the bottom. So, if you drop anything on the bottom, you go get it.
Tilted back, looking towards the top of the dome. As long as you do this, you won't even know you're spinning. If you move your head up or down or from side to side, you will know you're spinning, and you do run the chance of getting dizzy and possibly sick. Your chairs are going to rise up about 1.5 feet from the floor and then recline back. That'll be at top speed, about 3 times your normal body weight, and you'll be pressed back against the chair.
You're in mission control now. We consider this the most important part of the mission. You guys are in charge of the mission. We have all the bosses here: flight director, launch and landing director, and mission director. Launch and landing director, you're in charge of launch and landing. Flight director, you're everything from 6 seconds after launch until landing, okay? Now, mission director, you're in charge of everything that goes on during the mission. In this mission, we have Space Lab, we have some EVAs, and we have Space Station. Okay, you need to check with everybody. They're your responsibility. Any problems will come to you. Okay, in our mission control here at Space Camp, we have some aspects of Houston, we have some aspects of Kennedy. We fit in a little bit of both here. Let me just tell you a little bit about mission control. Each of you have a monitor in front of you. Now, on that monitor, you'll have anything from the clock to the EVA personnel doing their activity, satellite deploying, things like that. Up on the wall right here, we have a clock monitor. It'll always have a clock monitor. So if you don't have a clock on your monitor, you can look up there and find out what mission elapsed time it is up there. Okay, back here behind me, we have the large video screen. You'll see the launch, the landing, the satellite deployment, EVA activities, things like that will be up here. Right now, I have this on the cockpit. You're seeing what's going on inside the cockpit right now. On either side, you'll have the slide screens up here. We'll show you something pertaining to the mission on those screens, such as the launch, landing, the satellite deployment, EVA activities, something of that nature.
Landing is basically to the commander. Pilot, you would deploy landing gear. If in case of an emergency, something happened, like if there was a fire, you had to fix it, you can give control to the pilot. When the pilot is in control of the shuttle, make sure you put the switch over here to the right. That gives him control, okay? Also, the commander does 2S turns and the pilot does 2S turns. Again, when he's doing the ones and the profile will tell you who does which profile, flip that switch over to the left or right who's there in command.
How do you do this? How do you land?
Okay, I'll show you that tomorrow, okay? Now, about the S turns. It says in your profile to go 5 degrees to the right, 10 degrees to the left, and then 5 degrees to the right. There's no gauge in which you can tell how many degrees you are, okay? So just kind of guess. You just move your joystick to the right, then to the left, and then back to the right so that you're level, okay? At T-minus 6 seconds, these 3 engine lights will come on. You have main engine start. Those 3 lights will come on. Just because they're on doesn't mean they're going to stay on before you launch. Anytime between after that and up to like T-minus 1 second, those engine lights could go out. Well, one or more engine lights could go out. If it does, that means one of your engines had failed. The launch and landing director and flight director are in charge of calling the abort. A lot of times what happens, sometimes what happens is they're reluctant to call it. Like they'll see it, but they just kind of sit there and look at it. If an engine light goes out and they don't call anything, you have every right to say we have an engine out situation or something of the sort. You can call an RSLS abort if they do not call it. Now, if an abort occurs, this little red light in front of the commander will start flashing. That's the abort light. In case of an abort, what you'll do, there's a section in your profile where it says RSLS. In the mission profiles you'll have during the launch, there will be tabs, so you don't have to go flipping through pages to find it. It'll be there for you. Just read through those procedures. Normally, you would try the launch again in about 3 to 4 weeks, but if we have an RSLS abort, we're not going to cheat you out of your launch. Just because you have an RSLS abort does not mean that you're going to have an ATO. Sometimes we throw double aborts in one mission. And sometimes you may have an ATO but not the RSLS and vice versa. So you need to really be aware, anytime that there's a decision, important decision to make, such as whether to abort or whether to continue.
Guys, this is Space Lab. Space Lab is inside the cargo bay of the shuttle. You'll be spending about 50 minutes in here doing various experiments which are based on experiments which were flown aboard Space Lab 1. The panels you see on the wall were donated to us by PCTC, which is Payload Crew Training Complex out at Marshall. The panels you see in here were used to train the astronauts for Space Lab 1. You're looking at roughly around $800,000 worth of panels. The experiments that you will be doing in here, we have 2 self-contained experiments, which are taken care of by ground support personnel. All you have to do is power them up. We have one over here, which is the gradient heating facility. And then over here behind you, we have the vapor crystal growth chamber. All you have to do is activate them up when you come in here, then right before you leave, power them down. The rest will be taken care of by ground support personnel. Next experiment that you will be doing deals with blood glucose levels. You'll be seeing whether the effects of exercise and microgravity will affect the glucose level in your blood. We'll require taking one blood glucose test, then you will exercise on the bicycle for 5 minutes. Then you will take 2 more tests over the next 10 minutes and see if the level has changed. If it does, how much it changes. The next experiment that you will be doing in here will be testing your reaction time after disorientation. We will test you reaction time to both light and sound. Then we will put you in the revolving chair here, spin you around for various lengths of time, and see if your reaction time slows down any, or speeds up as the case may be. All of which the information will be charted and graphed on the data sheets when you get finished. Last experiment we have here in Space Lab is a solar fluids experiment, in which you will be exposing 3 fluids to the direct sunlight to see how well they hold heat or whether they don't hold heat at all. They will be exposed for 7 minutes, and then you will take thermometer readings for the next 7 minutes, 1 per minute, to see how quickly they lose their heat or whether they retain heat. About this time, when you get your experiments finished, you will head back into the cockpit, which should be around 1 hour, 9 minutes into the flight. You'll power everything down, go back inside the cockpit, and then land with the rest of the crew.
Dealing with space, dealing with the harsh realities of microgravity, the vacuum of space, you need some protection. That's why you'll be donning the spacesuits, okay? As you see, we've gone through the first step here of attaching the lower torso. Now, these suits are made along the same design as the shuttle suits, basically 2-piece suits with hard upper torsos. And as you can see, we've attached the lower torso and also the communication carrier. Okay? Next, we'll have the hard upper torso. So basically what you'll do is dive into it like a swan dive. Watch your head. Okay, you got your arms in?
Hi.
Very good. Okay. Once you have the upper torso on, go ahead and zip her in. Mind you, there will be a counselor in the airlock at the time you're down in the spacesuit, so you will have some assistance. And the last thing we're going to attach are the gloves themselves. And while you're out on EVA, you will zip into the gloves, but for time's sake, we'll just place them on.
We're doing our practice session for the space station EVAs. We're trying to duplicate as much as possible one of the missions that they flew in November, the EASE Access mission. We're doing, by building a combination of tetrahedrons and pyramids, we're building a structure, a tower, I'd say. The reason we use tetrahedrons is because they're strong and they're simple. We have very few parts. We use these struts and these nodes. We put them together in such a way where we can build a tower, which they're thinking about using for the structure of the space station itself. Well, the kids use here on our simulations, they use the 5DF, which is behind me, the black chair, and they use this MMU here, the MMU is something that they do fly on the shuttle when they're working on this type of structure.
In space station, we have built it up to represent the configuration for an actual space station. This downstairs mock-up is the laboratory area. We're going to be doing several experiments down here for the mission. As you can see, we've got a lot of different controls set up. One of the more important ones is the computer. The computer controls a lot of the different items. Okay? So we're going to go through and we're going to show you. I'm going to show you how to control this experiment. All right, first of all, you've got your manual over here, all right? And your manual will show you how to work with the experiment. Now, there's two important parts to the manual. The first one is called the mission-specific document, and it gives you the times when all of this is done, all right? If you notice, it has the time over here, and then it has the actual procedure that you're to follow on this side. This is the way the computer is set up. This is your power panel, your control panel, and this is going to let you control the experiment, okay? You're sitting down here in a space station crew module. Your experiment is probably several hundred feet away from you out in space at the end of an arm, so it's unaffected by the rest of space station. And you're going to control it from this computer console, all right? First thing you've got to do is look at the time. When do you begin? Well,
Welcome to the United States Space Camp in Huntsville, Alabama. More than 200 young people from many states are attending Space Camp this week.
David, you're on the team of Columbia. You'll be staying upstairs in Sleep Station 7. Go down here, down the hall, it's last door on the left. You need to wear that name tag at all times.
They will learn what it is like to train to become an astronaut, the importance of teamwork and leadership skills, as well as learning how rockets and the space shuttle operate. They'll meet new friends, learn a little bit about being self-sufficient, and be a part of an experience they will remember for the rest of their lives.
Okay, everybody. Looking this way. Nice big smiles. Eyes open. On 2. 1, 2.
After man had landed on the moon, von Braun had the idea that our young people, our youngsters in school, grammar school, high school, should somehow learn and hear more about this very ambitious program of moving into space. And he figured since we have camps, summer camps of all types, baseball camps, football camps, and all other kind of things, we should also have one that is dedicated strictly to space. So he really had initially the idea to have a space camp. And I even think he came up with this idea. And he mentioned it to Ed Buckby, the director of the Alabama Space and Rocket Center here, who was building up already the Space Center. And of course, he was not immediately ready when von Braun said it, but after the Space Center had been established and many fine displays were available here, he finally picked up the idea again and he established an early space camp. So space camp, the idea of space camp started in the early 70s, just after the lunar landing, but the implementation, of course, had to wait a few more years before the facilities were available. And that, of course, led finally to the establishment of Space Camp.
Rise and shine.
An important part of astronaut training programs is physical conditioning. Campers have an evening curfew and rise early in the morning for a hearty, nutritious breakfast and a period of brisk astronaut conditioning activities.
The chair that you see Chris riding in is called the multi-axis training chair. This is the chair they developed to train the astronauts for the disorientation of space. If you'll notice, there are 3 rings around the chair. This outer ring is bolted to the floor and it doesn't move. The middle ring rotates from head to toe on the x-axis, and the inner ring rotates from left to right on the y-axis. The chair goes up to a speed of 9, but our chair is locked on a speed of 3. This is about 2 revolutions per second. The astronauts actually went up 30